It's our turn, episode number 64, Games Designed by Women. In this episode, my husband Mark joins me and we talk about a mega game we played in, review a game with mercurial equines, and discuss our favorite games designed by women.
This is the Dice Tower Network, adding games to your wish list since 2005.
Hosting for this episode is generously provided by our fantastic supporters on Patreon.com. If you'd like to help us out by pledging $1 per month or more, please visit patreon.com/OurTurnPodcast. We'd like to send a shout out to our newest patrons, Kathleen and Ross. Every dollar helps to keep this show going strong. Thank you, Kathleen and Ross. Hi, and welcome back to Our Turn Gaming for Everyone. I'm Cathy Ford, and today I am joined by someone very special to me in the guest host seat. My husband, Mark, is joining me today to talk about games. Mark, welcome back to the show.
Well, thank you very much, my darling. It's very good to be here.
I'm excited to have you here. We've got a fun topic to talk about today. But first, let's talk about what we've been playing. And we are going to do this a little bit differently because
yeah,
Mark and I play games together all the time. And so we really only have a couple of games to talk about, and they're the same games. But I think we have a lot to say about these two particular games. So we'll go ahead and get started. On January 13th, Mark and I both participated in a mega game called Watch the Skies.
And mega is definitely the word for it. There must have been at least 60, 70 people.
Absolutely. So this game was held at a community center here in Sacramento, the Conzelman Community Center at Howe Park. And like Mark said, there were 60 or 70 people there easy. I think we only knew one person.
Yeah, we saw Price, didn't we?
Yeah.
Hi, Price.
And
I think that may be our first dual shout out.
And we were invited to this game by the organizers as members of the local press, which I was very excited about. Unfortunately, from the Our Turn team, only Mark and I could make it. But we were assigned to Team India. So all of the people in this game were assigned specific roles for specific countries. Like I said, we were on Team India. Mark was the military chief.
Yes, Admiral Mark.
For Team India. And I was the lead scientist for Team India. And think of this as being the top scientific advisor and the top military advisor. There was also a prime minister, a president, a UN ambassador, and a foreign minister. And now, just to give you kind of an idea of the scope of this game, we didn't start playing when we got there. We started playing 5 days ahead of time. Because, first of all, West Coast Mega Games, the company that put on this production, set up a Discord channel. Discord is an app you can download on your phone and use to talk to people. It was neat app. It's totally separate review. It was really cool to use this. I have used Slack for participating in Dice Tower chats for the Dice Tower Network, which is also a neat tool. They're very similar to one another. This one's called Discord, and West Coast Mega Games was using it to allow the different teams to talk to each other and to give information to the participants in general. They also set up an after action channel so that we could give feedback on the game, which I thought was very neat because we had quite a bit of feedback to give, which we will talk about here in a few minutes. But then Team India, as a way to kind of keep things on the sly, set up its own Discord channel, which from what I understand, it was free, which I thought was kind of cool.
Those of us who play World of Warcraft and other online RPG games, Discord is what we use right now to have our team chats. Like, for instance, when I'm going on a raid and I want to have voice communication with the other members of the raid, well, the guild I belong to, has a Discord channel all set up that we can use for voice chat. We can also use it for chat texting like we did for Watch the Skies. But I have to say that I have never had my phone blow up so many times in such a short period of time as I did when I installed Discord on my phone so I could keep track of what was going on with Team India.
Yeah, there was a lot of discussion on how we should proceed, what our goals should be. Now, understand our Prime Minister was the only person on the team that had ever played Watch the Skies before. So it was neat to have that kind of insight and to have someone there who knew at least part of it. What did you recall what he played before?
He was an alien.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, the thesis behind Watch the Skies is that Earth is just sitting there, peaceful blue marble. Well, maybe not so peaceful, but blue marble in the sky. And all of a sudden, you get a larger number of UFO sightings. And it leads from there. And the first thing you have to figure out in this game is, well, are these aliens, do they come in peace, or are they going to pull an Independence Day on us? And, you know, all they want us to do is die.
Right. Do they have a book called To Serve Man, and it's actually a cookbook?
Yes. That line was being used an awful lot. And that brings me to my first constructive criticism of the game. As I was playing the military commander, it wasn't until turn 3 that I found out that the rules allowed for non-violent interception of UFOs.
Ah, okay.
You know, and
so
by
you were
that time,
blowing things up before then.
Yeah. I was, you know, anything that crossed into our airspace was dead on a plate. And
that doesn't give a good first impression.
No, it doesn't. And it definitely didn't give the first impression that we wanted to give. But again, the rules didn't state that, you know, you could just, you know, send your interceptors up and watch. You know, it said, well, if you make an interception, you draw this card and you either, you know, damage or destruction and that definitely, you know, and the game would have come out completely different if all of us had known that. It's not mentioned anywhere in the rules. So first constructive criticism for West Coast Mega Games is please update the rules with all of our options.
Absolutely. Now, understand that there are lots of different teams. As we said, there were about 60 or 70 people there. Each team had anywhere from 4 to 6 players on it.
I think there were like 8 for the USA.
Yeah.
They had like 3 different military commanders.
Right. The United States was there. Russia was there. China was there. Japan, Brazil.
Egypt was there.
Egypt was there. England.
South Africa. So just lots and lots of countries, and each one was handling encounters in their own way as a sovereign nation. And I know one thing that the scientists tried to do, which is the group that I was working with. So like I said, I was on Team India, but then the scientists had their own little room in the community center where we would go to have scientific conferences and share information or sell advancements to each other. And that's also where we went to go get clarification on the rules about our roles. And we also got these dice that allowed us to progress in making scientific discoveries and things like that. So that was the game mechanic for making scientific discoveries. We were also supposed to present papers in order to share information. And if you presented a paper, you got more of these research dice. And the more research dice you had, the more advances you could make. You lost the research dice when you used them. They expired. So then you had to go back and try again to get more research dice. You could buy them, which we had very limited resources. At first, they were all for buying me all kinds of research dice, but then the money slowly started to dry up as our PR went down, our resources got tangled up as we needed to do military missions, things like that. But one of the things that the scientists were trying to do, independent from the military and the politicians and the diplomats, we were trying to get everybody to work together. And I have to say that of all of the components of this game mixed together, the scientists behave the most like I would hope Earth would behave if the aliens do come to visit us. The science folk were just, you know,
They were banding together. They were teaming up. They were attacking the problem from 4 or 5 different directions. And, every so often, Cathy would come back to our table and go, "Hey, I got this great new discovery. Hey, we've made this new discovery." And it looked like it was a ton of fun from the science point of view.
It was.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
I gotta say, the military side, we were working together too. I mean, India and China are, in reality, not terribly friendly with one another. But there was this one turn where like it seemed like a dozen UFOs popped up over India. And I'm, intercepting all the ones I can. And the China military guy comes over and says, "You want some help?" And I said, "Sure." Turns out they were all decoys. Apparently something about me shooting down a lot of alien scouts. I don't know where that came from.
So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I was back and forth between the main room where our team was located and the science room. There was also a separate room for the United Nations. And then the alien team had the stage.
Right. And there were 3 different tribes of aliens.
Right. And they were all in different colored shirts. But as I recall, they all had the little Star Trek symbol that you see on the Star Trek uniforms once they were revealed.
Yes, and the shirts were, strangely enough, red, gold, and blue.
Yeah.
I kept expecting the red ones to die easily, but apparently they were the minor types. But that's going further into the story than we really want to go into, I think.
Now, we're sitting here talking about what happened in our game, and understand that there are no spoilers for this game. This game is going to come out different every single time because of the people involved, the decisions made. There is no right way to play this game. Other than it being a 70-player mega game, I really don't see much of a difference between this and, explaining Power Grid, for example, because it's not like Time Stories or the Exit games where I'm going to ruin it for anybody. So.
Well, my opinion of this is it's part board game. Because there is a game board for the military. They have a giant globe with counters to move around, but it's more LARP than anything else. You are taking up a role and you are playing this out. The turns are timed simply to keep the action moving. Mm-hmm. But, there are so many variables that you really can't give spoilers because you don't find out until well into the game. Are the aliens friendly? Are they hostile?
And that's going to change from game to game, too.
Right. In this game, believe it or not, they were actually friendly. Mm-hmm. And some of the differences in language were very definitely exploited here. It was because, in fact, there was one place that, was being announced as an indoctrination center. Had our nation's PR been involved with it, we would have said, no. Indoctrination, bad word to use, bad connotations.
Maybe university would have been a better term to use.
University was exactly the term I was thinking.
Education place, not an indoctrination center.
And someone stirred up a rumor that persisted through most of the game that the aliens had mind control powers. Mm-hmm. Basically,
we were trying to research counter mind control technologies.
Let me explain what happened here. This is where I want to delve into what happened to my personal experience with it. I was the military commander for India. India was, after about the first 2 or 3 turns, had decided that they needed to become thoroughly and totally peaceful.
And neutral.
As neutral as, well, actually leaning pro-alien, but neutral nonetheless. Mm-hmm. And so for a good chunk of the game, because by the rules, most all of what the military can do is blow stuff up. I was just on, defense perimeter watch mode. And since we were neutral and everybody's friend, nobody was coming over to give us grief. So constructive criticism number 2 for me was give the modern military, as anybody who takes a realistic view of the military will tell you, isn't all about just blowing stuff up and projecting power. They do a great deal of humanitarian work. They do a great deal of research. And one of the critiques that I passed on to the game managers was, if the military is determined to be, if the nation is determined to be peaceful, let all those resources that the military take up be channeled into other things. Which would also have the byproduct of giving the military player for that nation a lot more to do.
Yeah, exactly. I remember back when Hurricanes Katrina and Rita hit the Gulf Coast in the United States, there was a big to-do made because Mexico sent their military to Texas and Louisiana to bring fresh water. And I remember seeing news reports that this was the first time the Mexican military had been on U.S. soil since the Mexican-American War.
The Alamo.
Yes. And it was a big deal, but they were here to provide humanitarian support after these two ginormous hurricanes. So I think that is an excellent point that you're making, that if the politicians and the diplomats have declared a country peaceful, then the military leader has to be able to do something. Now, at one point, the United States bombed the indoctrination center in Egypt and caused a lot of damage. And as I recall, you wanted to send in humanitarian aid to Egypt, but the rules said you couldn't because you were military.
Right. And the other thing I wanted to do, which was preempted by the whole peaceful nation thing, was, since we were pro-alien, at least at that point, I wanted to go in and send my forces in to defend Egypt. Oh. I mean, I had the full-blown carrier group, plenty of modern. One of the things that I did do early was modernize some of my older military forces to be able to stand toe-to-toe with some of these people. And, you know, I thought that standing between Egypt and America and saying, you got to come through me first would have been a great thing for us to do, especially given, you know, the aliens were trying to, you know, help Earth. But by the time the mid to late game rolled around, I was beginning to wonder if there was something to this mind control rumor. And I was setting up back channel discussions with my counterparts in England and America, trying to find out, hey, is there something we can do to find a detector for this?
Right. I remember you even asked me if there was a way to figure out if our own prime minister and president and UN ambassador had been subjected to mind control.
I wasn't worried so much about the UN ambassador because he was having kittens. As the tension ratcheted up and people were starting to, you know, wonder if the nuclear option was a way to go, he started having kittens, and adequately so. And I remember that, you know, I was going, you know, if they're brainwashed, you know, do I need to stage a coup?
That would have been interesting.
That would have been interesting as heck. But no, on the whole, though, I had a wonderful time at this game. There were, you know, as I said, there are some bugs in the military side of things, but watching the diplomacy go running rampant, watching all the press, because they had players playing two major press agencies, GNN and Badger News. Gee, I wonder who that was supposed to be. And strangely enough, as it turned out, the one that we thought was the most reliable and resourceful and accurate was Badger News. But all in all, this game was just incredible. I mean, the attention to detail in most of this situation is really good.
The technology used was pretty impressive as well. They had a map projected up on the screen on the stage that showed the terror level of the different continents.
And boy, did that sucker bounce when the aliens were finally announced as being real. Oh, Lord, that thing went nuts.
And the thing is when the terror level reaches 250 in two continents, the game is over. It's ended at that point because the world's going to heck in a handbasket. And it's not two countries, it's two continents. So as I recall, it was it
East Africa and South Asia, because they didn't break it up
No, I thought the North America was
North America was just completely off the rails. East Africa and South Asia was completely off the rails because, Egypt in East Africa was, one of the centers of alien activity. And we were saying, oh yeah, the aliens are fine. The aliens are fine. And apparently that got our people all up in arms. And I think there was one other, at one time, I think we had, was it 3 of these units that were within like 230 to 245? I mean, we were on the verge of complete and total Terran meltdown.
And at that point, too, the scientists were going crazy trying to come up with consumer advancements because that brings down the terror level. You're creating new things for people to consume, to buy, to play with, and that brings down the terror level.
I think your science team definitely is what pulled us back from the brink.
Mm-hmm. So how long did we end up playing? About 10 hours?
Let's see. Started at 9:30, and I think we got out of there right about 8. So yeah, it was 11 hours.
And the last 45 minutes or an hour was talking about our experience with the game
yes,
as a group.
The debrief, yes, and that was like I said, it was a really fun experience. Under normal circumstances, I would rate it probably in the 4.5 range, but because of the gaps that seem to be left in the military, I kind of have to ratchet that back down to a 3.5. It's definitely a great game, but it does have a few bugs that need to be ironed out.
Yeah, I would have. For me personally, I would have rated this game a 5, except for the problem that you were left sitting and with nothing to do. And, you being my husband, your lack of enjoyment of the game at the time. I mean, I know now you're saying you really enjoyed it, but at the time you were kind of upset.
I was incredibly frustrated.
Yeah, that you had nothing to do for so long. So for me, that kind of ratcheted it back to a 4. I do think this game does have some bugs that need to be worked out, but thankfully the people who are running West Coast Mega Games are very open to constructive criticism and constructive critique. And so I know that Mark's been talking with them on the Discord channel, talking about what his suggestions are, and I thought you did a really good job with that. I am going to try to get a couple of people from West Coast Mega Games to come on and talk about what they do and why. Watch the Skies is not their only game. They've got one other game that I'm aware of. I don't remember the name of it right off the top of my head.
I do.
Oh?
It's Sengoku.
That's it.
It is a feudal Japan game. And that has my curiosity up more than a little bit as well. They also have a couple of other games. I think they may be one-offs for holidays coming up this year, but memory escapes me on those.
So we will definitely have some links to West Coast Mega Games in our show notes. And I highly recommend the experience. If you have an opportunity to play a mega game and understand you're going to be there 10 to 12 hours. You're going to be around a lot of people. They did provide food for people to buy. There was Costco pizza, which, it's not bad. It's not the greatest, but it's not bad. And they had snacks there. They had water and soda for you to buy. And it was not convention gouging prices. It was $1 for a slice of pizza, $1 for a bag of chips. It was $1 for a water or soda. Very reasonable. I thought that was very cool.
With all that I've said about, that I've relayed about the negative side of things, let me state for the record that I would definitely be interested in playing it again. I would definitely
Watch the Skies.
I would definitely be interested in playing Watch the Skies again.
Okay.
My only caveat on that is I would probably not choose to be a military commander again. I would probably want to choose to be a diplomat or a scientist.
I would definitely play scientist again. I thought that was a ton of fun. And now that I understand the rules about scientists, I think I would be even more inclined to do it again. I would suggest that you talk with the West Coast Mega Games people before you make that final ultimate decision, because I know you enjoy playing military. And I think that if they implement at least some of your suggestions,
maybe give it another try and help them.
Yeah, I absolutely
the rough spots with those.
I absolutely would. But what I'd really like to try playing is the alien side.
That would be fun.
Either whether they're here in peace or here to carve you into pieces. I want to try the aliens.
Okay, that's fair.
And that's Watch the Skies from West Coast Mega Games.
Yep. Now, the other game that we have played recently is kind of a goofy one.
That's putting it mildly.
Our friend Dwayne and Yuriko invited us over for dinner. Hi, Dwayne. Hi, Yuriko.
Hi, Dwayne and Yuriko.
And Dwayne pulled out this game he's gotten recently. It was a Kickstarter-only game called Unstable Unicorns.
Unstable, I think, being the operative word.
Yeah. This is a party game. It is very silly. Mm-hmm. It does have an After Dark expansion,
yes,
which we did play with, but we're not going to talk about very much here. And basically, you've got these cards that have all these different unicorns on them, and you have to play them into your tableau, which is your stable. And then there are also powers and abilities,
upgrades and downgrades for your stable.
Right. Yeah, you can upgrade your stable to make it more powerful or more resistant to downgrades, things like that. Or you can play downgrades on somebody else's stable. Mm-hmm. And these also are recurring things. So when someone tries to do something to you, I know Mark and Dwayne played a card right at the beginning, and I don't remember the name of it, but
it was Yay.
Yeah, that was it.
Which prevents you from being neighed.
Neighed, right.
And that's neigh like a horse because it basically it's the counter spell of this game.
Right. So if someone plays a card on you and you don't want to let that happen and you have a neigh card in your hand, you can play the neigh card and that negates it. Very silly, very tongue-in-cheek. The After Dark portion of it was very risque, not safe for work kind of thing.
Let's just say that this is a party game that goes from party to party.
But we did have fun. We actually ended up playing it a couple of times, but a very, very silly game. I personally am not a huge fan of these kind of party games. Like I said, I had fun playing it. It's probably something that would be fun to play, every 3 to 6 months or so, and maybe only once or twice for an hour or so. But it's not something that I would want to play constantly, endlessly, over and over and over and over again.
The thing about these type of party games, and I'll use what seems to be the 800-pound gorilla in the room, Cards Against Humanity, as an example. The thing that you have to remember is these are not designed to be played like you would play Magic the Gathering or Settlers of Catan. This is something that you would do as a one-off or a two-off. This is not a game you want to spend all your days and nights playing because it would get old fast.
Right. There's no strategy to it, really.
No, there isn't.
The object of the game is to get, 7 unicorns in your stable, and that ends the game right there.
Yes, ma'am.
First person to get 7 unicorns ends the game. Now, there are cards that say, if you want to do this, then you have to discard a unicorn, or you have to sacrifice a unicorn. And those are 2 separate actions. Discarding a unicorn puts them into the discard pile. Sacrificing the unicorn takes it out of the game?
Well, there was sacrifice and destroy. Sacrifice is when you take out one of your unicorns. Destroy is taking out someone else's unicorn.
Right.
And there was one card that I remember getting that I couldn't play because I could never get enough unicorns in a row, was the Unicorns of the Apocalypse. Which, yes, war, pestilence, death, famine. And you had to discard 4 unicorns and then search the deck for 4 other unicorns. So you could turn a basic unicorn with no powers into a unicorn with special powers that you could use. But it's such a big undertaking that combined with the fact that one of the downgrades to my stable that someone played on me was called Pandemonium.
That was funny.
which meant that I didn't have unicorns, I had pandas.
And if you don't have unicorns, you can't win the game.
Well, that's true, but also cards that affect unicorns couldn't affect my stable because they were pandas. So there were a couple of cards that I could, weasel word my way into using. I don't have to get rid of any unicorns because I don't have unicorns. I have pandas. And this doesn't happen to this card because as soon as it goes into my stable, it's a panda. And so it was fun. And I have to say that the not safe for work portion of this game, while thoroughly scandalous, it almost is more a more, I hesitate to use the word wholesome, but it's almost it's more of a lechery than anything else. Most of the cards are, shall we say, sexual in nature. And if you are familiar with the true legend of the unicorn, you can see where that would fit. Mm-hmm. But it's one of those, it's not like bodily function humor for the most part, and that you see in so many games. It's, like I said, it's got an appeal. It's a twisted appeal, but it's got an appeal.
Right. So is this one that we're going to be looking to add to our collection?
I don't think so.
I don't
but
think so either.
I do think that, well, two things. One, I do think that the game could be improved by a liberal application of intoxicating beverages.
Yes.
In fact, they do have the rules for a drinking version.
Anyway, so that is Unstable Unicorns. The designer is listed as Rami Batty. I don't know if that's an actual name.
I don't know either, but I'm going to guess that if I had to guess, I'd say it was probably a nom de plume.
Probably. And it was self-published on Kickstarter. There's no company publisher listed on Board Game Geek. So, like I said, I give it a 3.
I give it a 3.5.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it's funny once, maybe even funny once in a while, but not a steady diet.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we've been playing. You've heard us referring to and rating games by a rating scale. Here's how we're using this scale. 1. Give me back the time I spent playing it. 2. Has great potential as kindling. 3. Decent with some bugs. 4. A good, solid game. And 5. Buy this now. For today's hot topic, I am again joined by my wonderful husband, Mark. Hi, Mark.
Hi. Where? Who? Oh, you mean me.
And today we are talking about our favorite women game designers. And I don't know about you, Mark, but when I was going through the game shelf, I was having a hard time, even finding designer names, but much less finding women game designers. Did you have a similar issue?
Oh, yeah, very much so. Women are still an underrepresented facet of the game design population, but great strides are being made. And in looking at the Spiel des Jahres winners, I saw a couple of names there that have been real heavy hitters, including one, which we'll mention later, who has not only won the Spiel des Jahres, but the Kenner Spiel des Jahres, which is the connoisseur game, and the Kinder Spiel des Jahres. She and her husband have taken home all 3 at one time or another.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, and as we'll come to find out in our discussions here in just a minute, they may be few in number, but yea, they are mighty.
Yes, they are. So who would you like to start with? Is there really any other person we could start with than your first choice?
No, not at all. We have to start any discussion of female game designers with our turn's own Sarah Reed and her husband Will. They have a game coming out soon entitled Oaxaca, but our introduction to them was through their design project Dreamscape, which was released in 2015. And the art was done by a beautiful watercolor work by Julie Okahara. And they publish under the name of Undyne Studios. And the game itself was an idea that when I first saw it, I went, ooh, I like it. Because in this game, you're recruited as a dreamer. And your goal is to be the best dreamer and get the recording contract so that your dreams can, be used or disseminated out into the world. And it's got an innovative card matching set collection, but you've got sets on both ends of the card kind of mechanic, which makes it really unique in my eyes from everything I've ever seen in the way of card games. And the fact that these two came up with it, like you've often said that a lot of people think that every gamer has a game designer in them, and to which you say, no, not really.
No,
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one.
I have zero desire to design games myself.
No, but I love playing them.
I am happy to talk about them and to play them.
Absolutely.
But I am not a puzzle person, and game design is too much of an exercise in puzzling.
I agree.
Out.
Now, that being said, I admire people who can do puzzles like that.
Absolutely. And design
games, yes. And Sarah and Will have done a magnificent job with this game. It's pretty. It plays well. It's simple yet meaty.
The component quality is fantastic.
Oh, yeah. They took the time on that one, and I'm glad they were able to. And by all measures of the Archer and scale, definitely a 5.
Absolutely. And yeah, I have been impressed with Project Dreamscape since I first saw it. I can't wait to play Oaxaca.
You and me both.
We weren't able to connect with Sarah and Will. We had it all set up. We were going to do it, and then I came down sick and decided I did not want to share that nastiness with Sarah and Will. And then we were never able to reschedule to get out and play it again before the Kickstarter happened. But we did order a copy.
Yes, we did.
So we're waiting for it to get here. But there are games by other female designers that we have played, and that is one thing that we are specifically talking about today. We're only going to mention a few female game designers. As I mentioned, we don't have a whole lot in our collection designed by women, but we wanted to stick with games that we know and can talk about because we have played them. And obviously, we've played Project Dreamscape many times. The next one I'm going to talk about, I actually learned through an interview that I did here on Our Turn, and is called Dragon Dodge. And it was designed by Jeff Fitzgerald and Maggie Stewart. And in Dragon Dodge, it's a wizard's game. You're playing a pair of wizards who are manipulating dragons in an arena to try and take out your opponent wizards. And take out is the word, you're not trying to destroy them or kill them or whatever. You're dropping a dragon on them, but it's an arena, so
I know I'm not supposed to tell you the odds, but the odds of surviving having a full-grown dragon dropped on you are 14,358.7 to 1.
That's probably true. But this is a fun game. You can play it 2-player, you can play it 4-player, you play it in teams if you play with more than 2 players. And just the concept of this game, when I did the interview, just really captured my imagination. And so I went and backed it on Kickstarter, and I'm glad I did. Now, our next game that we're going to talk about goes back a bit.
Just a wee bit, yes.
And actually, I informed Mark about this one. He didn't know this, so go ahead.
No, I didn't, and I've done my research, and I am suitably impressed. I think this would be a front runner for the first female designer of a board game, because the year is 1904, and that was right toward the start of board games. And the lady's name is Elizabeth Maggie, spelled Magie, so I'm assuming. And her game was called The Landlord's Game. Now, you've probably never heard of The Landlord's Game, but I will bet you a donut that you've heard of the game that eventually evolved into. And that would be everybody's love-to-hate game, Monopoly. It started as the landlord's game in 1904. I saw a picture of the board. It's got the chance spaces. I think the street names were completely different because I think when they took it to Monopoly, they added the Atlantic City vibe to it. But this is probably the all-time classic board game. I don't know of anybody who doesn't have memories of sitting around a Monopoly board with their family. I don't know of too many people who have good memories of it because it is that contentious a game. In fact, I remember there is a trick to Monopoly, and once I discovered it, and I discovered it before the rest of my family and friends did, it got to a point where nobody would play with me because I was always outperforming them.
Now, if I remember correctly, Elizabeth Maggie actually had a social agenda when she developed this game, and that was to draw attention to the issues faced by renters because of the unfair practices of landlords at the time.
At the time?
I'm not sure they've changed a whole lot since then. I think they've become a little bit more regulated. But at the time, there was some serious issues with property management and renters getting the short end of the stick. And so this game was developed as a social statement. And unfortunately, if I remember correctly, somebody saw it, liked it, and stole it. And that became Monopoly.
Well, I don't know about the stolen part, but the comparisons between the landlord's game and Monopoly are strikingly similar. And if a similar evolution, shall we say, happened today, I think lawsuits would be flung rather copiously.
Well, I will bet you another donut that Elizabeth Maggie's name is not anywhere on the Monopoly game.
I don't think Monopoly is credited anymore.
I know that Board Game Geek said it says for the landlord's game that it was sold and developed into Monopoly. But I think it probably, if I remember the history right, I think there was a lawsuit when Monopoly came out, and that's why it's able to say it was sold. I think they compensated her after the fact.
Well, anyway, my hat's off to Elizabeth for her design, the foundation of the game that we all came to know as Monopoly is very apparent when you look over the pictures of the components. If anybody is into board game history, I highly recommend you look at Board Game Geek's entry for the Landlord's game. It's amazing. And that's the Landlord's game.
Yeah, and the next one we're going to talk about, we've talked about on this show before, and I am a big fan of it, and that is Monarch, which was designed by Mary Flanagan, Zara Downs, and Max Seidman. In Monarch, you are each playing a princess who is the daughter of the Queen Regnant. So Queen Regnant is like Queen Elizabeth right now. She is the monarch in charge. She is the sovereign. As opposed to a king, who kings almost always are King Regnants by default. The only two that I can think of that were co-regents with their wives was King Philip, who was king consort to Queen Mary I of England, and William of Orange, who was king co-ruler with his wife Mary of Orange, who is the reason that they got the throne at all, because she was the English noble that was invited to come and rule.
How this stuff sticks in your head, I don't know. You are a classic Anglophile.
I am. It comes from, oh yeah, let me follow this link. Oh, that's Wikipedia. Oh, let me follow this link. Let me follow this link. Let me follow this link.
And down the rabbit hole she goes.
Exactly. Anyway, so in Monarch, you are a princess. You're trying to prove to dear mama that you are the one that should be her heir apparent and take over when her time is done. And so you are each trying to prove that you know how to best run the kingdom. And I was intrigued by this game because you're not the child of the queen. You are the daughter of the queen. Regardless of player's gender, you're all princesses. And I gotta say that the guys in my group that I have played this game with
have carried off being a princess beautifully. Nobody got hoity-toity or offended or anything like that. They handled it beautifully, and they all had fun, and they took on the role of a princess very well.
Move over, princess. I am the queen.
So this is a fun game. It's a resource management game. Does it have any other mechanics you can think of that?
Well, it is also set collection because you're trying to collect...
Set collection, that's it.
You're trying to collect a tableau of powerful cards which add to your score, which prove that you are the fittest to replace Mama as monarch of this lovely land. And I've got to say, it's a very elegantly designed game.
The art is unique.
Oh, it's gorgeous. And I have fun playing it every time it hits the table. I really do. Mm-hmm. I can't argue with your rating on this one at all. Not in the slightest.
Yeah, I rate this game a 5. I always have fun when I play it. I love the concept of it. I love the artwork. The artwork, by the way, is done by Kate Adams and Sarah Ettinger. So 2 more women to be credited there. And it's published by Mary Flanagan, LLC. And yeah, I recommend this game. I recently found it initially I found it at a convention, but I recently found it in a bargain bin at Barnes & Noble. So you might be able to pick it up for a pretty good price if you're interested. So that's Monarch by Mary Flanagan, Zara Downs, and Max Seidman.
One more comment about Monarch.
Yeah.
There are going to be members of my gender out there, of the uneducated, unenlightened kind, that are going to go, I don't want to play a game where I got to be a princess. Dude, if you're a board gamer, put on your big princess panties, pull them up, and play it. You're going to have fun.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And now...
So what's your next game?
Well, my next game is probably one of the biggest titles that's been designed by a woman. It's a classic abstract strategy game. In fact, I would say that it is the classic abstract strategy game. And that's Quirkle by Susan McKinley Ross. The first time I played this game, I'm going, wow. Because you have 6 shapes and 6 colors. And the havoc that you wreak with those simple materials. It can be a brain burner with just simple, it's a just boiled down, stripped down essence of an abstract strategy game. And
it's a tile laying game.
It feels like dominoes, but instead of matching numbers, you're putting together sets of colors or shapes or a set of all 6. It's a work of art. It really is. And it was published in 2006 here in America, made its way over to Germany in 2011, and it won the Spiel des Jahres in 2011.
Yeah, it did.
And you've seen, Quirkle cubes and Quirkle this and Quirkle that. But if you are a fan of strategy games and you like a good abstract strategy game, I cannot recommend Quirkle highly enough. We've rated it a 5 here in the past. I would give it a 6. I mean, it's that good. If you call yourself a gamer and you don't have a copy of Quirkle in your collection, go get one, or we're going to revoke your gamer card. And
it's easy to
still
find.
in print.
It's at Target.
It's still in print.
Yeah, and it's at Target.
It's 11 years. Excuse me. Let me stand corrected. 12 years old. This is 2018, after all. It's 12 years old, and it's still in print. What does that say to you? Knowing how the winds of change blow through the game shelves at your local game store. 12 years in print. That's got to be some kind of record. I mean, we're talking Monopoly numbers here.
I like it. And I like that it's easy to play with all kinds of age groups. I have played this with my niece, not my youngest niece, but my, at the time, teenage niece. I've played this with my, at the time, 93-year-old grandmother.
I remember that one.
I've played this with my mom. Now, understand, my mom and my grandma, they're gamers, sort of. They're kind of old-style gamers in that they like Monopoly and canasta and bridge and pinochle and things like that, which are great. But they look at some of the games that I play and they just shake their head. They can't understand how I can comprehend any of it. But I'm happy to pull out Quirkle because they get it, they can play it, they understand it, they think it's fun. And and yet it's still this deep strategy game that even dedicated gamers like to play.
It's a beautiful game. I mean, it is. It's the board game equivalent of soccer. It is the beautiful game. And like I said, it's one that I don't play often. But whenever I do, I am just amazed at the creativity and the depth you get in such a simple package. It's a beautiful game. I love it.
The next one that I would like to talk about is my beloved Firefly RPG game. Now, there was a whole team of people from Margaret Weis Productions that worked on this game, but in particular, I want to give a shout out to Monica Valentinelli, who I am trying like crazy to get on the show for an interview. So Monica, if you're listening, contact me through Twitter and we'll set something up. She has been involved in she was involved in the original writing of this RPG. She's involved in all of the expansions for this RPG. She's not the original writer, but she has been involved in all of it from the beginning. And I also want to give a shout out to Margaret Weis, from the founder of Margaret Weis Productions, that publishes this game. I absolutely love this RPG. It is different from D&D in its rules and its system. It's very heavy on the ROLE portion of role-playing as opposed to the ROLL portion. You do roll dice to resolve conflicts and challenges and things like that, but there is a lot more role-playing, ROLE playing, than there is rolling of dice. And I found it really unique that they only go up to D12s, and they do use the D12s. I noticed D12s don't get used very often in D&D and other role-playing games, but they do get used in this one. And as a DM, I have thoroughly enjoyed running this game. Now, Mark, you are a player in my game.
I am.
What do you think of the system?
I think the system is very innovative. It's definitely a skill-based system as opposed to like a level-based system. But Ms. Valentinelli, I do hope you agree to an interview with Cathy. When Cathy saw this role-playing game, she thought, oh, I want to take a stab at DMing, at game mastering. And our friend Dwayne and I, hi Dwayne, we've coached her because Dwayne and I have both been DMs since... Oh, good Lord. I've been since 1977. I'm an old fart. What can I say?
When he was DMing in 1977, I was probably finishing up kindergarten or first grade.
Yeah, it's been a while. So what I want to say is that we trained her to be a nice, fair, happy, player-friendly GM. Monica, you've turned her into a monster. I love the game. I get to play my old Texas kind of gentleman assassin, and we've gathered a pretty. I think motley is an understatement for the crew we've put together, but the system that this is based around and the property that it's based around make for a very fertile ground for role playing. Roll with an E. And it's a terrific game. I'm a big fan.
So to give full credit, it was written by Robin D. Laws. Now, Robin is often a name used for either men or women, but I looked it up, and Robin D. Laws is a man. And then Andrew Peregrine, Rob Weiland, Eddie Webb, Elroy La Santa, Monica Valentinelli, Dean Gilbert, and P.K. Sullivan. I have no idea if P.K. Sullivan is guy or gal.
Well, Margaret Weis is someone that old school D&D players would know because she was very much a large part of an organization called the RPGA, which was sort of the spiritual predecessor of today's Adventurers League. It was semi-organized play for Dungeons and Dragons. So yeah, Margaret Weis is familiar. She also did a lot of the Dragonlance stuff, if I recall correctly, rather. And she's, like I said, very prolific writer. So it's not surprising that a company under her name would be something that would come out with something this rich and deep.
Absolutely. And I love this. And it does make me want to explore other Margaret Weis properties and see what's available out there. Now, we posted a question on BoardGameGeek.com in our guild number 2600, and we got some responses. We asked, who is your favorite woman designer, and what is it you like about her game? And so, Mark, you were going to tell us about...
I got that in hand. Roger mentions that the only game in his collection that has a female designer is a game called Cat's Mansion, and that was designed by Martin Davidson, Judith Duffy, and Seven Towns. I'm not sure what Seven Towns is all about, but this was back in 1984. So I'm not sure what Ms. Duffy has gone on to, but she's there. Our friend Rich Bright, hello Rich, mentioned Susan McKinley Ross. Quirkle is the only one of her games that she's got. And then Charlotte mentioned Inca Brand. Now, Inca and her husband Marcus designed a little game that you might have heard of recently called the Exit Games, and those were this year's Spiel des Jahres winners. I also did a little digging that Inca and Marcus not only have won the Spiel des Jahres, but they won the Kenner Spiel des Jahres, which is they call it the connoisseur board game. Basically, it's the advanced board game of the year in Germany, and they've also won the Kinderspiel des Jahres for children's games. I just wish I could get into the idea of an exit room on a tabletop. I enjoy exit rooms, don't get me wrong, but the whole tabletop thing has as yet escaped me. Apparently, they also have a new game coming out called Rajas of the Ganges. I'm not sure if that's out yet or not, but it's, anything with an Indian theme sounds good. Actually, it looks like it is out. 2017 was the publishing date, so that's something worth looking forward to. And we have a couple of other mentions by Charlotte. Mary Flanagan, Visitor in Blackwood Grove. She backed it on a Kickstarter. It's not been released yet, but that looked good to her. And also, one she says she'd like to play is a game called Noria by Sophia Wagner. Apparently, it's being pursued by publishing companies currently. And that wraps up the commentary from the Board Game Geek Guild. You got anybody you'd like to add on the end of this, Cathy?
Well, since starting our turn, I have been privileged to do a number of interviews with women game designers, and I want to just mention a few of them here. Jessica Price, who is a writer and designer for Paizo Publishing, which is an RPG publisher. Kelly North Adams has been on the show for a couple of her designs. Sina Hirsch is also a game designer that has been on here. She did a Bigfoot-themed game. Heather O'Neill is another one, and Elsa S. Henry. Diane Sauer is another one that I want to mention. There's a lot of women who are getting into game design, either part-time or full-time, and I want to encourage you, if you feel like you've got a design to, put out to the world, then do it. Do it. Don't be afraid. Yes, you might fail. The guys fail too. I know when I started Our Turn, I was terrified. I was terrified that people were going to tell me to shut up and go away, and they haven't. And I don't think that even if you do encounter stuff like that, ignore it. Move past it. And if you've got a design in you or more than one design in you, go for it. That's the whole reason we have interviews on Our Turn with women designers and other designers too, men and couples and groups. It's to get the word out that we all have something in us and we all have something to give. And if you've got a game design in you, go for it.
We just about almost committed a cardinal sin, Cathy. We forgot another member of the Our Turn family, Sarah Graybill from Blackstraw Games.
True, Sarah, yes. We have not had a chance to play any games by Sarah and John yet.
But that time will come.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why we didn't mention her initially, because we were trying to stick with games that we've played to review. But yes, Sarah and her husband, John Schulters, are also game designers, and they are very close to getting one of their games published, is my understanding.
Spy Club. We're looking forward to it.
Well, they did development on Spy Club. They weren't designers on Spy Club, but they have their own design that's coming out. John had mentioned it in one of our recent episodes, and he said the name was being changed, and I don't recall what it was being changed to. So, but yes, Sarah and her husband, John, are also game designers. So anyway, who are your favorite game designers? We want to hear about it in our guild. There's a thread on there asking who your favorite game designers are. Go ahead and you can post your response there. We'd love to hear from you. Or you can also post it in the thread for this episode. We would love to hear about it there as well. And thanks for joining me for this discussion, honey. I appreciate it.
It's been a great pleasure. It's really good to see the wave of female game designers start to pick up speed and watching it grow. It's really, really a wonderful thing for a gamer to see.
The Dice Tower Network is a proud supporter of the Jack Vassell Memorial Fund. The board gaming community is kind and generous, and this fund was created to provide financial assistance to members of the board gaming community in their time of need. To find out how you can help the fund continue to help others, please visit jackvassell.org/donate. Thank you for your support.
Now we're getting to the part of the podcast where we're winding things down and looking ahead to what's coming up on our schedules in the next week or two. Mark, what have you got on your plate?
Well, I've got a chance to play a game by a designer that I'm very fond of. A couple of our friends, Amy and Mike. Hi, Amy. Hi, Mike. They picked up a copy of Charterstone, which is Jamie Stegmaier's latest epic. And in this one, apparently you're supposed to be colonizing lands outside the kingdom for the Forever King, who is the leader of the Kingdom of Green Gully. Well, if it's anything like Scythe or Euphoria in the component quality and the dedication to detail,
and the artwork.
And the artwork. You know it's going to be a knockout. I've seen some of the artwork here, and it's pretty good looking. I'm looking forward to getting it. It's a competitive legacy game. So it's not a co-op legacy game. That strikes a bit of fear in my heart. Hopefully it's also resettable. That's going to be something I would hope to see. But yes, I'm looking forward very much to playing Mr. Stegmaier's new epic Charterstone. How about you, Cathy? What are you looking forward to?
Well, just talking about Charterstone real quick. I know Sarah reviewed it, and she and Will really, really enjoyed it. And she has made it part of her 10 by 10 challenge, and she's almost completed it.
Yeah. Didn't they play something like 7 plays in 3 days or something like that?
Something like that, yeah. So based on her recommendation, I'm really looking forward to playing Charterstone too. We're going over on, I think, Tuesday to play that. So that should be a lot of fun. I am looking forward to the first Saturday of the month, game day at our friendly local game store, Great Escape. I have some games that I need to get played because our Patreon folks voted for a couple of games for me to play. One of them was Happy Salmon, and the other one is Mombasa, which is a pretty heavy game. So I need to get those played. And I've played Happy Salmon with 3 people, and I'd like to play it with a bigger game. It's another one of those party style games. So the other thing that I'm looking forward to is I've got some Kickstarters that are kind of getting close to delivery, and I'm really looking forward to seeing them come through. One of them is called The Lady and the Tiger, and the artwork on it is just beautiful. And in fact, the artist was inspired by one of my favorite artists, M.C. Escher, who, if you've ever seen M.C. Escher's work, it's very surreal. And so when I learned that this artist was inspired by M.C. Escher for the artwork in this game, that was the selling point for me. So I am really looking forward to seeing that. And right now I'm drawing a blank on what the other game is that's close to completion, but I've only got a couple of them out there. So it's always fun to get Kickstarters in the mail. I do have one that is on our unplayed game shelf that I'm hoping to get played very soon called The Queen is Dead. And that is a 2-player game. So I'm
hoping to finagle you into playing it here real soon.
I don't think too much finagling is going to be required for that one. It looks pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm. The really interesting thing about that was during the Kickstarter, you had 2 different art styles to choose from for the game. Same game, just different art themes. One, you could do kind of I want to say it's kind of a medieval anime style. And then the other one was a steampunk style. And instead of a queen being dead, it was the leader of a Japanese gang.
I think so.
Had died, and then it was leaders of the gang who were trying to take over, fill the power vacuum.
You know, I know you didn't like that theme very much, but damn, that artwork was beautiful.
Oh, it is for both of them. I had to pick just one, and I had to go with the one that appealed to me. And that was the medieval anime style, so I went with that one. So I'm looking forward to getting those to the table. Anyway, so that's what's on the table for us. Mark, how can people get a hold of you if they want to connect with you online?
Well, in addition to dropping a message toward me in the guild, that's Guild 2600 on Board Game Geek, people.
Yep.
You can usually reach me on Twitter at The Amused Geek. That's as in, I used to be disgusted, now I'm just amused. And you can contact me through the podcast. I'm sure Cathy will relay the message.
Absolutely. And you can get a hold of me through the Our Turn Podcast Twitter handle. I run that. And then I also am the person that does the posting in the guild at boardgamegeek.com/guild/2600. And we will, of course, have links to all this in our show notes. And please do reach out to us. We love talking to people and hearing about what you're playing. So until next time, thanks for listening. And on behalf of the entire Our Turn podcast crew, that was our turn.
Now it's yours.
Thank you for listening. This episode was recorded on January 21st, 2018, and is written and produced by Cathy and Mark Ford. We want and encourage your questions, comments, and feedback. Please call 916-426-2873 and leave us a short voicemail or send an email to feedback@ourturnpodcast.com. Our theme music was composed by Adriana Crickle. Incidental music was provided by Ben Sound. Please check out our show notes to learn more about these talented artists. The material in this episode is copyrighted under Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial No Derivatives 4.0 International License. If you want to learn more about the games discussed in this episode, please visit our website at ourturnpodcast.com/episode 64. You can find a list of the games along with links to their listing on BoardGameGeek.com. We are proud members of the Dice Tower Network. You can find out about other shows in the network like Board Games with Panda, Tabletop Game Talk, or the Portal Gaming Podcast by going to dicetowernetwork.com. Thank you for your support. If you like what you heard, please tell your friends about us.